Welcome to forever, man. Let's go. Come on. This forever. No surrender. Yeah. You know that this right here forever. And there will be no surrender. Now allow me to reintroduce myself. They call me.
You're now tuned in to the Dads Who Live podcast. I'm Joel Staley with my co-host Tyler Gaeta. In this week's episode of the Dads Who Live podcast, we talk to Sal Di Stefano, host of the #1 fitness podcast, Mindpump. We discuss whether or not gyms will survive COVID-19. We talk about how the government is handling the quarantine and how to get out of this quarantine in the best shape of your life. Be sure to check it out. Our guest today, Sal Di Stefano, man. I can't say how pumped I am having you on, and thank you so much for being on here, man.
Oh, I appreciate you guys having me on the show. Thanks.
Absolutely, huge fan. So this means a lot to us.
So
thank you.
Back in the day, Sal was my business coach for just a couple weeks. He was just helping me out with some stuff.
That's why you are where you are.
Yeah, and I remember like I would see his cell phone number coming on my phone, and like my heart would start beating, and I'm like getting anxiety. I'm like, oh my God, dude, it's Sal from Mindpump. I get to talk to him. So kind of those feelings are coming back right now, man. But Tyler was saying he had listened to a recent podcast of Mindpump, which I have not had a chance to tune into yet, but I will as soon as we're done with this. Where you guys are talking a little bit about the end of gyms. So I wanted to touch on that subject a little bit.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So it's your newest podcast, I believe, that you just put out. I was just listening to it yesterday, but you guys were talking about COVID-19 and will this be the end of gyms? And it was pretty cool how you interviewed. So I love your platform. Like you basically it wasn't like a podcast like Joel and I are just sitting here talking to each other today. You would like preface each phone call interview, and then you interviewed all these major guys in the gym industry and asked how they were handling things, what they thought was going to change, and where they thought things were going to go. And it was super interesting, man, to hear just kind of the direction gyms are going to shift. I think it's going to be a lot different moving forward once we get all the restrictions after this COVID deal.
Yeah, one thing that we ask ourselves during this whole situation is how can we provide good value to the people that listen to our show? So, a lot of the focus lately on our show has been, how to exercise at home if you don't have tons of equipment, how to maintain good mental health, spiritual practice, all the things that we think will probably bring value to people right now because it's, uncertain kind of weird times.
Absolutely.
But we do have a large segment of our audience that works in the fitness space. So, trainers, gym owners, coaches, that kind of stuff. And so we, an idea that I thought was, I think it probably a good idea to report on the current state of the brick and mortar gym business because they've been hit all businesses that have been shut down have been hit very hard. But gyms in particular, they tend to be models based on, people working out in rooms together, sharing and passing equipment back and forth, you're sweating and that kind of stuff. And so I said, God, these are going to be perfect targets for legislators. Now, logically speaking, that makes sense. Like I said, you are in a space with lots of people sharing equipment, but there still isn't any evidence that gyms really caused any acceleration of spreading. In fact, the people that I talked to that own gyms and manage gyms said that they've actually had very low amounts of cases, probably due to the fact that people in gyms, skew more towards fitness and health. But that's not the point. The point is that legislators are going to go after gyms, among other businesses, very hard in terms of how they reopen. So I thought, gosh, with regulations coming down the pipeline, especially when you consider all the different jurisdictions, different states might have different rules and laws and different localities and even larger federal governments. I thought this is going to be very difficult for a business that's model is dependent on crowds of people working out together, sharing equipment. I don't know how they're going to work around some of these regulations. So what I wanted to do is gather leaders from different segments of the brick and mortar fitness business. Because when you look at the brick and mortar gym business, you have your country club type gyms, you have your traditional big box, maybe 24-hour fitness type gyms, personal training studios, you have group classes, which can be, yoga or Pilates or CrossFit, might even go into that category. Orange Theory might be under that category. So what we wanted to do is just interview leaders from different segments of the brick and mortar fitness business and find out how they were handling it now and what they, how they were planning on working in the future. And so that's what we did with that episode is we interviewed, people, including Mark Mastroff. Mark Mastroff is widely considered to be the godfather of the fitness industry. He founded 24-Hour Fitness. The way big boxes make money, a lot of the way that they learned how to do that was through the model that 24-Hour Fitness.
And you used to work for him way back when you were first starting, didn't you?
Yeah, that's where I started my career. I started at 24-Hour
That's
Fitness,
crazy.
and I managed gyms. And this was during when Mastroff owned or led the company. He left after a short while, right around the same time that I did. So, how is this how could this business possibly survive with all these regulations? I know the gym business. I know it pretty well. I know that a lot of these gyms run, razor thin margins. Messing with that a little bit either means you have to charge way more, or you have to shut your doors. You have to completely change your model. And, I know the average fitness consumer. Now, this may change in the future, but the average fitness consumer in the gym is not the fanatical gym member. It's the average person that pays low monthly dues. And, if you go up by $5, you're going to lose, 20% of your members. So this is real. Like if Planet Fitness just, before all this went down, if they just raised everybody $5, they could expect a 10%, loss of members just because it went up another $5. So I thought, gosh, how are they going to do this? So we talked to them and to kind of figure this all out. And, I have a very deep passion and love for the gyms. But I do think that I don't know how they're going to go back to the way they were before. I think we're probably going to be in a 6-month to a year process of following different, rules and regulations. And then that's not even counting consumer behaviors. I'm talking about the regulations. Consumers' behaviors are also going to have an impact. People may be afraid to go to the gym, or the new environment in the gym. Now you walk in. Remember, your gym might have been a place where you walked in and you relieved stress. It was a place where you forgot about your troubles and you lifted. Or
now it adds stress or anxiety.
Yeah, now you're going to walk in and everybody. You can only go in at a certain time. People are wearing masks. It's got this kind of weird vibe. It's not the same. So you combine the consumer behaviors with these new laws, and that could be a very difficult future. So the whole show we organized in more of a journalistic fashion. Typically, our shows are more conversational. But I wanted to fit all of these leaders on one episode, and then at the end we had our own opinions on what we thought. And we all the leaders we talked to were very positive, but I do think that that's part of who they are. They're all successful business leaders. I think.
Yeah, you have to stay positive.
What's your opinion, Sal? You're a very, very smart guy. I mean, of course, if you ask me about my business, I'm going to try to be as optimistic as possible, no matter what it is. A lot of business owners have that quality, glass half full type mentality. But not to say that's not you, but you're more on the outside looking in. You're a realist. Do you think that they're going to be able to rebound, at least the majority of them?
Well, you can have an optimistic outlook, or you can be, you could say you can be optimistic but realistic. So what I mean by that is you can look at it and say, for sure, this is going to be a challenge. For sure, there's going to be changes. For sure, we're going to have to figure out how to work around this. But I have confidence in myself and my team that we can work through this, versus it'll be fine. We'll be fine. A couple months, it'll bounce back and be totally normal. I think people with that attitude are probably going to fail because I don't foresee this going back to, quote unquote, the normal that we were used to before in any short period of time. I think it's going to take a little while, maybe never. there's a lot of markets that are going to be altered forever. Education, I guarantee, the education bubble for sure is going to pop from this. I mean,
Right.
if colleges don't reopen, why am I sending my kid to, $50,000 a year tuition when they're doing it online? And then there's so many less expensive online options now. Why would I do that? So I think gyms are going to survive. I don't think they're going to look the way they did before.
So sorry, go ahead.
My personal opinion is that I think gyms are going to have to increase their service and value along with the price. So you're probably looking at double, triple, or quadruple the average gym price. So if your average 24-hour fitness was charging $20 in order to maintain, their margins, I'm sure they'll probably have to go up to maybe $60 a month. People, of course, are going to expect more service for $60 a month, which is what they're going to try to deliver. I think you're going to see a huge shift. You already are, of people who are going to work out at home. Home gym equipment sales have gone up about 600% last time I checked. I've been in the fitness business for over 20 years. I have never seen people like I've seen now talk about the gym equipment that they've literally made themselves. I'm getting pictures, people making it themselves, their squat racks and their benches because they can't get access to them and they don't plan on going back to the gyms.
Yeah, there's guys in our group that have made dumbbells with cement, like buckets of cement with poles that they cemented into them.
Yeah, so I mean, the demand is still high. People still need to work out. Fitness isn't going anywhere. Just the way we do it is probably going to change. So I see a greater percentage of people working at home, and then I see the people that do go to gyms are the ones that want the more expensive, high value, high service experience, or the super hardcore fanatics who, I don't mind spending, as much as I spend on my cell phone bill for gym access, which is, I mean, I can make the argument that it's far more valuable than my cell phone.
Absolutely.
But the average person, you tell them, would you be willing to spend $150 a month on the gym? They'll say no, but they'll spend that all day long on their cell phone bill. So I just see the people's behaviors changing and the market shifting. I don't think the gym industry as we know it or as we've experienced it is going to be the same. And I think you're going to see a lot of players get kind of washed out. People who are maybe teetering on the brink anyway, this will just push them over the edge.
Yeah, so the big box gym model has always been, memberships, affordable memberships to as many people as they can, and half of them aren't going to come and use them, right? I mean, right. A lot of people are going to pay for the membership to 24 Hours or Planet Fitness and never come, and that's how they can keep these memberships so cheap. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where the huge change is going to be, where now that you do have to restrict who's coming in and they do have to raise the prices, then it's going to cut all those people out that weren't really actually using the gym in the first place, and
it was really telling when we did our interviews because Scott, the owner of Red Dot Fitness, which is a local high service personal training studio. So this is different than your typical gym, right? It's a small facility. They have equipment, but it's all personal training. So you work with the trainer in there. So it's what would be considered low volume, high service, high cost, right? So I talked to him, and he's got, I don't know, 20 or 30 trainers in there doing their thing and training clients. They've lost a total of 6 members. That's it.
Nice.
And, I've trained people for a long time, and I know that the value that you provide for your client, they're far less likely to discontinue that when stuff like this happens versus the, $20 a month gym member that comes in sometimes and other times doesn't come in. So I think the smaller high service facilities are poised to be to have higher chances of success. Not to mention, it's easier for them to follow regulations. If the regulations say you can't work out within 6 feet of someone else, personal training gyms can do that. They probably already kind of do that now, whereas big box gyms are probably going to have to start scheduling workouts. So if you have your membership, you're probably gonna have to sign up. And
classes are gonna get hit. I mean, there's not gonna be any more classes with 30 people in a room,
No way. way.
Online classes, there's probably gonna be a huge boost in, though, I would guess, over the next month or two, if there hasn't been already.
Absolutely. I think the tech fitness services like Peloton and Tonal and those kind of companies, I think will have some surges in business as people try to work out at home. You know, another strategy I could foresee happening in the gyms is because I think it's probably inevitable that you're gonna have to sign up for a time to work out. I think that's inevitable if they want to keep their current.
You think even in the smaller gyms that'll be a thing? Like even the ones that are open now? Like there's a few small ones here in town that have been open through the whole COVID process, and you just had to limit 10 people per, building.
Depends. It depends on how many people they tend to have work out. If they're small, they're probably less. It's probably going to impact them less, right? But
yeah,
I could foresee the big ones saying, okay, you sign up for a time, and then due to the volume of people that sign up at particular times, those times are more expensive. So if you pay $20 a month and you want to work out at 10 a.m. or noon when nobody's really in there, you're probably okay. But if you want to work out at 5 p.m. after work, then it's going to cost $80 a month.
And that's prime time.
I could foresee something. Yeah, I could foresee something like that too.
There's still going to be a line for bench on Mondays, even with 10 people in the whole gym. I'm calling it right now.
Yeah, I hope not.
So,
yeah,
Sal, anyone that follows you on social media or listens to Mindpump has a pretty good indication about how you feel about the government stepping in on people's rights. How do you feel? And this is something we put a poll in our Dads Who Lift group last night with like 30,000 guys in there. So we got a lot of takes on it. But how do you feel like, and hopefully you don't catch flack for this, let us know if you don't want to answer it.
Yeah, don't worry.
But do you feel like the government stepping in and the quarantine and all the regulations, do you think it's 100% necessary? Do you think it's a little bit overboard, way overboard? Where are you at with all that?
So yeah, we did a little overboard, way overboard, or 100% necessary were the three main choices in the poll and the group.
So it's okay. So if I want to be very objective here, and first let me preface this by saying I'm not an infectious disease expert, but I do like reading a lot about history and kind of what this country was founded on, and I do know that our freedoms tend to be readily given up whenever we're scared. Okay, so Americans don't like their freedoms necessarily forcefully taken away from them. We have a pretty good history of fighting against that. But when we're frightened, we tend to give them away, very happily. I mean, after September 11th, everybody was afraid, of course. We had a big terrorist attack in New York City, and we very easily gave away, due process. I mean, we passed the Patriot Act and the NDAA, which allows the government now to wirelessly to tap your phone, go into your emails, to essentially take you and imprison you indefinitely without judge, trial, or jury. All they would have to do is say that they suspect you to be a terrorist, and then they could circumvent those very important laws. And that was all because we were scared. Some people would even argue that we invaded Iraq, which didn't have any ties to September 11th, because we were scared as well. So fear is a very powerful motivator. And right now, everybody's really scared. And so they're doing some shutdowns and stuff that are going to have some very, very big economic consequences, downstream economic consequences, which kills people too. People
there's companies that aren't going to come back. I just heard this morning the local Twin Peaks in our area, two of them they're shutting them down. They're not going to be. The one in Iowa and the one here in Omaha, they're not going to be reopening.
That's our go-to.
I know.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I mean, and people die. People die when when economy declines. People think, oh, it's just less money, not a big deal. No, it becomes a very big deal. So that's something that we need to pay attention to. And look, we're not China. So China, they have an outbreak. Government, it's a tyrannical government to begin with. They go in, they force you in your house. There were stories of them welding people into their homes, and you just couldn't leave. And so then they were able to quell the virus that way. Well, we're a free country. I think we need to either voluntarily do it or not. And that's got to kind of be left up to us. Now, the government coming in and forcing things to be shut down, I understand. I understand the logic behind that. I really do. But they got to be careful with how they push this, because you're going to start to see people protest, and people will stop having faith in the system if they keep doing what they're doing now, which is, okay, in 2 weeks we're going to reopen, and then 2 weeks comes up. Oh, we got another 4 weeks, and then we got another 4 weeks, and that causes a lot of uncertainty. Look at Sweden. Sweden has a different model, right?
Herd immunity.
Country. Yeah. Well, what they did is they said, here's some guidelines. Here's what we want you guys to do. We're going to pay attention to hotspots, and people voluntarily did a lot of it, and they seem to be doing pretty damn well as a result. So that's where I would lean. I lean. Look, if you yourself want to have a personal responsibility, and you don't want to go out and be exposed, then you stay home and do that. If you don't mind exposing yourself, okay, do that. And if you are around other people, look, I have 100% agree that private businesses should be able to tell their customers, we can't let you in unless you have a mask on. That's a private business, and I think a lot of them will do that. I mean, let's go back to gyms for a second. I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a strong market demand for gym consumers to feel safe inside of a gym when they go back. If I walk into a gym tomorrow and it's packed and nobody's cleaning equipment, I'm walking right out. I'm not going to go to that gym. So I'm pretty sure there's a strong market, signal that says for consumers that they want to feel safe and clean in gyms. So I think a lot of that will probably happen, but I tend to lean more towards, I don't like force. Give us the option to be voluntary about this. Let Americans be responsible. And once you give up your freedoms, you don't really ever tend to get them back. So that's kind of where I tend to lean in that regard. So how do I think they're reacting? I think some state and local governments are way overreacting, and I think some of them are reacting a little more appropriately. I mean, I'm in California, right? We were the first ones to shut things down, and we'll probably be the last ones to open up. We just got news that they're going to extend it till June, which
really,
which is
around here.
insane.
I heard that May 4th they're like doing a soft opening for a lot of businesses around here.
Yeah, we're in Omaha, Nebraska, so we're a little bit more scattered than your New York City, than your California, stuff like that. But man, June, that sucks.
I feel like hindsight's 2020. Like when this but I also feel like we need to learn from this moving forward, because this is not going to be the last pandemic, the last COVID, the last something that happens. And I completely agree with you that. You can't take away our rights and our freedom, and it should be our choice. But like when this thing first came out, it was scary. We didn't really know much about the virus. We didn't know how it spread. We didn't know really much about it at all. The numbers of what we saw in China and Italy and things like that looked devastating. A lot of people were dying. So I can understand at that point in time wanting to take certain actions to protect people in America. But I definitely feel like now when the numbers are coming out that they were skewed and that the death rate's not near as high as what they thought it was, and it's probably going to be closer to where the flu is as far as death rate goes and things like that. Once we actually figure out what this is and get a good grasp on what's really going on, like why the hell isn't everything reopened right now? Like I feel like everything should be reopened right now.
Well, you have to. This is what they're trying to do. I hope that they're balancing out risk versus reward. So, okay, economic consequences versus what we think might happen if more people are around each other in terms of infection. So, I think they're doing that. They're trying to do that balance act. But what you have with who's making the policies or pushing the policies are infectious disease experts, and I understand part of that. But the other part of that is. They will always go towards the side of extreme safety. That's their tendency. That's their job. So we need to have a little bit more balance. There was just a report from the UN that said that these interruptions in the way that we produce food and distribute food, people don't get this. They don't get this, right? The UN just released a report that says we are on the brink of major food shortages that will affect the most vulnerable people in the world. So people don't think economics issues will kill people, but it kills more people than diseases do. So we got to be very careful, and completely shutting things down and then trying to reopen with insane regulations, which will make many businesses impossible. Well, I don't know. We'll see. Again, you're right. Hindsight's 2020. I think in 5 years, we'll be able to look back and say, if we did what we did was right, or if we overdid it.
Well, the problem with that though is if it's not as bad as we thought, then the experts are going to say, oh, that's because, well, you're going to have two sides of the coin. You're going to have the people that say, see, it was only as bad as the flu. We way overreacted.
There's never a right answer.
And then the other people are going to say, well, yeah, it would have been much worse had we not shut everything down. So it's not like there's ever going to be a crystal clear answer that both sides can come together on. Everyone's going to pick their team and stay on it, I feel like.
Well, that's the problem with fear, isn't it? It's very
Fear-based.
powerful. It's easy to scare somebody, and it's impossible to unscare them. And now everybody is scared. I mean, I'm here in California, okay? California's got, what, 40 million? I think close to 40 million people. We've got, 1,700 deaths. So 1,700 deaths in the entire state of California due to COVID. So...
And were those all really COVID? I mean, they're saying now that there's deaths coming out that, people really just had heart attacks. And if they had the virus, they claimed it a COVID death, even though they had a heart attack,
Yeah. And so again, I'm not a disease expert, but I do think, I mean, there are other countries with different models, and they seem to be like Sweden again. They have more infections than their neighbor, that has a lockdown. But they're economically speaking, they're probably going to do a lot better. And then if we go downstream from there, then you may see that it worked out much better. And then here's the thing too about flattening a curve: it lasts longer. So we may be flattening the curve, but that's just going to almost ensure that it's going to be around much longer. And here's what's going to happen: we're going to reopen. And inevitably, you're going to see a spike in cases, of course, because more and more people are out.
Second wave.
Yep. Yeah, they're going to freak everybody out again and make everybody so. I don't know. I think we need to be very careful with how we allow this fear to run us, because if we're not, then that'll be the problem, not the disease.
I've also seen videos on social media, multiple videos of doctors, and there's one where this guy is actually an infectious disease doctor. I can't remember his name, but there's millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of views on this video. But he's talking about, the immune system and how, we need disease and bacteria as a baby. Little kids are on the ground touching things and putting things in their mouths, and that's how you build up an immune system. And when we tell everybody to stay in our houses, we're effectively shortening our lowering our own immune system, even the healthy people, because now we're washing our hands like crazy. We're disinfecting our countertops, which it's a good thing to be clean, but we also need that bacteria to keep your immune system boosted. So now we have people that are quarantined inside their houses, keeping their countertops completely clean, their hands completely clean 24/7, and they don't have any of that good bacteria and bacteria that, like, people, he was saying in his video that people also need bacteria and viruses that they swap between people to keep your immune system. So you take all that stuff away, and he says what's going to happen now is we're going to re-release people back into society, and their immune systems are going to be lower than had they been if they weren't quarantined. So not only are you going to have a COVID spike, but you're going to have people coming out with lower immune systems than they would have had, pre-quarantine.
Well, we know that processed food consumption has dramatically increased. Smoking has gone up. Alcohol consumption has gone up.
Porn.
Porn consumption. I mean, we're dealing with a stressful situation. Many of us have never been through something like this in our lives. So, with the way media is now, it really gets sensationalized and it freaks us out a little bit. I think in the past, when you didn't have access to media all the time, you would hear something scary, you'd be freaked out a bit, but then you'd go outside, talk to your friends, and you'd be like, oh, I think it's okay. And you'd start to kind of feel a little better. You weren't constantly reminded to be scared. I tell you, look, if you just shut off your media right now and just went about your day, I bet you after a couple days, you'd be like, I think it's a little better than, I thought. I think things are doing a little. And so that's not happening right now. So it's interesting. It's really interesting these times. I think we're going to look back and learn a lot about how we reacted, what we did wrong, what we did right. What I hope is that we don't create so much damage with our laws that we're not able to recover from. I mean, the government, or I shouldn't say the government, our central bank is printing, and I quote print, I mean creating trillions of dollars that are not tied to any value. They're not tied to any increased production or efficiency or products or services. What they're literally doing is diluting our money by giving everybody, these checks, which is essentially a tax on the rest of us who have money, because it just reduces the value of current money. I mean, that's got downstream effects that don't go away.
Absolutely,
it's going to have big problems. So that's what I don't want us to. I don't want to be in a situation where it's like we walk into the hospital with an infected hand, and the surgeon, says we got to amputate your arm. When really you could have just washed the wound. That's what I want to. I want to be careful. I want to be careful and make sure that we don't over react to the point where the medicine is worse than the disease.
Let's transition to what you are an expert in. I know you guys have been putting out a lot of your recent episodes, like you said, just trying to deliver tremendous value in terms of what people who can't go to the gym can do at home to at least maintain or sometimes even possibly improve their performance and muscle gain. Do you have 2 or 3 tips that you could give our viewers that are stuck at home in a position like that, whether it's ordering bands or getting creative? Like, what would you recommend people who are stuck at home do?
Yeah, so one of the most valuable tips I can give to somebody in this current situation is to exercise more frequently than they normally do. Now, what I mean by that is not like if you work out 3 days a week, now work out 5 days a week. I mean, you could do that too. What I mean is take your normal workout time and volume and divide and break it up into smaller workouts. So rather than, for example, doing an hour workout on Monday, do 3 20-minute workouts on Monday. So 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon, and 20 minutes in the evening. And there's a couple pieces of value that will bring you. One, the breaking up your day with workouts really does help structure what probably feels like a day that has less structure than you're used to, right? You're probably not going to work like you normally do. Kids may be at home, so the days may start to feel like they kind of bleed into each other. Breaking your day up into smaller chunks creates better structure, and mentally speaking tends to make people feel a little bit better. There's also the small boosts in the feel-good chemicals and hormones that we get from working out, that we get from our normal workouts. Now we're going to spread throughout the day. So rather than getting one, how you feel after you have a really good workout where you feel energized and positive and things kind of feel a little bit better. Well, breaking up your workout throughout the day is going to provide you with more of those spikes throughout the day, which will help you feel better as well. And then from a performance standpoint, if you've never trained that way before, it is a novel stimulus, meaning it is new for the body, and you'll notice that your body actually will start to respond. And this is true whether you're stuck at home or not. I've experimented with this.
You've been talking about this for years, I remember.
Oh, it's amazing. The Soviets did a lot of studies on this with their athletes where they would take their total work volume, and rather than doing it all at once or in 2 workouts, they'll divide it up into many small workouts. And the performance enhancements are phenomenal. We have studies that suggest that if you did, 2 30-minute bouts of cardio versus 1 60-minute bout of cardio, you burn more body fat that way. There's other studies to suggest that you actually build more muscle working out this way as well. So, and it lends itself very well to body weight exercises and band exercises because, body weight exercises may not have as much resistance or tension, although there's ways you can manipulate that. I'll get into that a little later. But frequent workouts lends itself well to, push-ups, lunges, crunches, and I do that 3 times a day type of deal. It feels pretty good and it works really well.
Sal, you've been talking. So when I first started following you a long time ago, I can't even tell you how many years, but this was back when the bro splits was like the go-to: chest Monday, back Tuesday, arms Wednesday. And then you were the first one, at least that I came across. And I would typically keep my ear to the ground pretty closely on these type of things, that instead of just ramp up the intensity, you were the first one I ever heard say, instead of intensity, of course that's got to be accounted for, but what you need to be paying more attention to is the frequency. And then sure enough, over the next 3 or 4 years, the push-pull legs becomes more popular, the full body workouts become more popular. Like, how did you even stumble across that?
Well, so I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and at one point, I got very, very into the history of muscle building and bodybuilding and the way that people trained throughout the years, and you could see some pretty clear trends in muscle building type training, and you could tie those trends to the introductions of anabolic steroids. So before anabolic steroids really became a big thing in bodybuilding and muscle building, most bodybuilders and strength athletes train their whole body 3 or 4 days a week. And they would either do full body workouts or they would do upper lower body, which was less common, but they would essentially train every muscle group about 3 or 4 times a week. And they would refer to exercise as practice. So they would go to the gym or their gymnasium, and they would practice exercises. As anabolic steroids became bigger and bigger thing, you saw bodybuilders start to train body parts less frequently and increase the intensity or the volume per workout. So in the 60s and 70s, especially the 70s, you saw body part splits become a really big thing where you were doing, each body part, once or twice a week with lots of volume. And as steroids became a bigger and bigger thing, the frequency dropped lower and lower and lower. 80s, maybe 2 times a week you were hitting body parts. Towards the late 80s, early 90s, once a week, and then once a week became a huge thing. And I feel like you could directly connect that to the amount of drugs that the athletes were using. So you want to ask yourself, well, why? What do anabolic steroids have to do with all this? Well, we can measure the muscle building signal when you lift weights. It's called muscle protein synthesis. And that level, essentially your body is using proteins to construct tissue. And we can measure this. After you lift weights, the muscle protein synthesis signal spikes very quickly. It goes up very quickly, and it stays elevated for about 24 to 72 hours. So about 1 to 3 days, this signal stays elevated. And then it drops very quickly, almost faster than it goes up when it spikes the first time. It goes down very quickly. Now, it doesn't matter if you're still recovering. So your legs might still be sore 48 hours later, but your protein synthesis levels have dropped down to baseline. And if we leave it long enough, another couple days or 3 days, then we start to see it drop down below baseline, where the body actually now, because your muscles will only ever be as strong and as big as they need to be. So your body gets the signal to build, starts to build, then the signal goes down, and then, we don't need this stronger muscle. Okay, let's get rid of some of it. So what ends up happening with these body part split routines for natural athletes is they lift weights really hard, they build some muscle, and then they lose some muscle. And they go back to the gym a week later, and they're exactly where they left off before. Now, why does anabolic steroids change this? Well, anabolic steroids are a very loud hormonal signal that constantly tell your body to build muscle. In fact, I could give you anabolic steroids, not have you lift any weights, and we'll see a spike or a rise in muscle protein synthesis levels. Okay, so when you're on anabolic steroids, you don't need to hit your muscles, frequently. You hit them really hard once a week, let them adapt throughout the week. The signal doesn't really die down like it would in the average person, then you hit it again. And so that works just fine. But the average person, that signal goes down, and adaptation is different than recovery. This is another thing that people need to realize. Recovery is the healing process. Adaptation is the process by which your body aims to become more resilient to future insults or stressors, okay? And they tend to happen simultaneously, but they are separate. And if you beat the crap out of your body too hard, what your body's only going to be prioritizing is healing. It's not going to think about adapting. And once a week body part type routines tend to over-apply intensity, and you tend to create that type of environment. So when I looked at the old bodybuilding and muscle building routines, I thought to myself, wow, that's how these guys built their impressive physiques. I mean, this was before protein powders and creatine. And I thought, gosh, I wonder how that would work on me, because I'm natural also. I have more in common with them than I do with the current people that promote, muscle building advice. So I changed my routines, and sure enough, I got way, way better results doing it that way. And now, luckily, we have studies now that show that actually is true for the most part, especially if you're an average lifter, especially if you're a hard gainer. If you're somebody that really has a hard time building muscle, frequency is even more important. So that's kind of how I pieced together the workouts that I designed, and really the concept or the idea is to understand adaptation. Understand it as a process of adaptation. And if you think of how the body adapts to other stressors, that approach makes perfect sense. If you want your sun to get darker, your skin to get darker from the sun, which is an adaptation process, from the UV rays, your skin is trying to adapt by becoming more resilient to future exposure to UV rays. What process or what formula would give you better, darker skin? Small, frequent bouts of exposure to the sun, or one bout of exposure where you sit out there and burn yourself?
Right. So if you're coming out of quarantine, you haven't been to the gym in 3 or 4 months, don't just totally hammer your body parts as if you never took a couple days off, because you're not going to build muscle.
No, you want to apply the right dose.
Now, are you saying you split up your actual lifting too into 3 different lifts a day?
If you're at home and you...
Or is this more of just an at-home deal?
This is for now, for at home, but I will say this is something fun you can mess around with on your own too. So
if I'm still going to the gym and I'm taking my pre-workout before the gym and my citrulline and I'm, trying to get my pump, that I'm doing it all at once.
Right. But I will say this, try this out too. This works better, I think, if you have a home gym, but if you don't mind taking a day off of work or whatever and you want to spend, most of the day at the gym, try this. Try taking 3-4 exercises, like maybe a bench press, a barbell row, an overhead press, for example. There's good 3, and maybe
like a full
squat.
body.
Yeah, like a squat, maybe 4 exercises.
Okay.
Do 3 sets of each for, 8 reps. Keep your intensity moderate. So maybe do 8 reps, with weight that you can do maybe 12 reps with, and go into the gym. Do that in the morning. Wait 2 hours, go back to the gym, do it again. Wait 2 hours, go back to the gym, do it again. Do like 4 workouts like that, and then come back and tell me what happened.
Now, do you train without pre-workout?
If I'm going to do, it depends. If I'm going to do like a full workout,
then you'll hit it.
And my energy's low, then I might, I'll take some caffeine beforehand. But if I do the all day workout, it doesn't make any sense, because I'm not.
I'd be dying if I took pre-workout 4 times a day.
I'd be painting the toilet.
Right.
So that's true. You can tell, even because if you do go to the gym for an hour, typically those first 20 minutes are the best part of your workout. So it would make sense if you split that hour workout into 3, where you're getting the first 20 minutes each time, how your performance would be better. You'd be fresher. You'd have more strength. I can 100% see why that would work.
Well, my theory, and I don't think that that's the way you should always work out. It's impractical, and I don't know if it would continue to produce the type of results that it does when you first try it. But my theory is that what you're training is you're really getting your central nervous system to adapt really, really well, and you're able to fit a tremendous amount of volume in your day, more than you normally would. But that also means you need to reduce the intensity. So I wouldn't do 4 or 5 20 or 30 minute workouts in a day and do them all at the same high intensity. I would reduce the intensity, but then at the end of the day, let me put it to you this way. Let's say you did 3 sets of bench press, 5 times throughout the day, right? That's 18 sets of bench press at a moderate intensity. You would never be able to do that in one workout, but you could do it if you spread it throughout the whole day. And when I've experimented with this, I come back stronger, and I seem to, after one workout, I see improvement. So
now, do you need to hit one group that frequently though?
There's a lot of ways you can apply it. So some people will do where they just do arms. And this is no joke, I've actually had friends monitor this, where they'll work just their arms. They'll go into the gym and they'll do 5 sets for biceps, 5 sets for triceps, and they'll do this every other hour. Again, moderate intensity. They're not going super hard, but hard enough to get a little bit of a workout and get a pump. And they'll end up doing, 5 or 6 of these sessions. And I'm not exaggerating. This is a true story. I've had several friends add a 1/4 inch to their arms from one day of doing that. So
by hitting arms 5 separate times that day, they added a 1/4 inch to their arm.
No joke, a 1/4 inch to their arms. Yeah, and the 1/4 inch was on their arms.
So they were actually building muscle throughout that day then.
Yeah, and I think that, and
I thought you always had to sleep to repair and build.
Okay, so that's part of the process, but the human body tends to grow in spurts. It's not this. So like when you look at babies, for example,
Yeah.
studies will show that it's not like the baby grows an inch taller and it's like a
Every
quarter of an
night.
inch
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
that
they go
makes
through
sense.
spurts. And if you think about when you lift weights, okay, if you really think about it and really break it down, it's like you'll work out, you'll get a little stronger, and then boom, muscle will come on your body. And then you go through the process again, a little stronger, and then boom, muscle. So it's almost like you go through these little spurts of growth in your body. It's if you really break it down, it is that way. Now it tends to be slow, so it feels incremental. But I think if you break it down, you'll see that I made a lot of gains right here, and then it took a while for me to make a lot of gains again. You know what I'm saying?
As long as I'm stronger than Joel, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, Sal. So we have a fitness competition between me and Tyler on July 1st.
Oh man, now it's getting real. We're letting Sal know.
We're basically just using it as a motivator to keep us motivated during this whole COVID deal, and B, after you've been working out for 10, 15, 20 years, you start to find yourself going through the motions sometimes. But when there's a deadline and a competition, it's easy to get motivated.
We also want to get in the best shapes of our lives so that we can do like a photo shoot and promote our podcast.
Right.
Oh, very cool.
So what advice, I know it's very short. It's like 2.5 months. What advice would you give
10 weeks left,
Tyler to give him a chance?
Well,
Joel just fasts and drinks whiskey. So that's Joel's plan. He's eating tacos, margarita, and then he drinks whiskey every night, and then he'll fast for like 6 days straight.
That sounds like a best-selling diet book.
Yeah, there we
that's
go.
what Joel does.
What would you? Let's hear it.
I would have to know what his exercise history was and goals. But I mean, in 2-month period, if you're relatively lean, I'd try to reverse diet, build muscle through the process. If you need to get leaner, then the focus would be on a calorie deficit with a good full body strength routine. Maybe
and that's where I'm at. I'm sitting at like 214 right now. I'm trying to get down to probably like 185 by July 1st, hopefully.
You guys, now you are both experienced with working out. You guys have been doing it for a long time.
Yep.
Yeah, big time.
So do you guys take supplements?
So Joel's all natty. I have been natty, but I'm starting TRT.
Creatine, sometimes protein powder if I'm not getting enough in my regular diet. And then pre-workout, like you said, if I need a boost.
I do pre-workout, 1 protein shake a day with my superfoods, and then I'm starting TRT now.
You are starting TRT, testosterone.
I am, yeah.
Were they low or?
Yeah, I was down to like 390, but my free T was at like so 390 is low, but it's not horribly low. But my free T was all the way down at like 1.2 or something like that.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting my insurance to cover it.
And you're going to bring what level is your doctor going to try and bring it up to? Middle or high?
1100, 1200 is where I want to stay.
No, that'll make a big difference. That'll definitely make a big difference in your body's ability to build muscle and then indirectly burn body fat. I would also say pay attention to, because when you're taking hormones, exogenous hormones, you don't have the testosterone fluctuating effects that you normally would have. So like let's say you lose sleep one night or whatever, you don't get good sleep. If you were natural, you would get a dip in testosterone, but because you're on TRT, they'll always stay high. So pay attention to that, because people on TRT sometimes will push other things because they don't get the feedback that they'd get from the hormones. Doesn't mean you get away with it. It just means you don't necessarily get the same accurate feedback. But creatine I'd recommend. And then since you guys are experienced, I'll recommend another supplement that's a little bit exotic that actually works. It's called ecdysterone. I've talked about it on the podcast before. No sponsorship. We don't work with any companies. I don't think I ever would. It's not something I'd recommend to everybody, but it legit works. It legit is a supplement that has some muscle building and fat burning properties. In fact, I think if I'm not mistaken, the Olympic the committee that oversees the Olympics has suggested it become a banned substance because of its effects. So
it's all natural. It's not like a SARMs.
No, it's not. It's not.
Where can you get it, Sal? Just anywhere?
You buy it online. It's spelled ECDYSTERONE. It's found in plants. It's also a hormone that is in insects. You have to find good quality stuff because there's a lot of crappy stuff that's out there.
All I had to do was type in ECDY and it popped up on Amazon, so it must be pretty popular.
It's good. The legit one is expensive, so if you don't look for the cheap stuff, but it really works. It legit works. The Soviet Union did a lot of studies on ecdysterone and found it to be.
What's it do? Is it like a test booster, or
it doesn't boost testosterone? It doesn't affect hormones, but it does speed up muscle protein synthesis levels. And in the Soviet studies, they compared it to 10 milligrams a day of Dianabol, and actually found it to be just as effective. That's not a big dose of steroids; it's a small dose, but they found it to be just as effective. In animal studies, it consistently increases lean body mass. When you take it, the effects will last about 45 to 60 days, after which you'll want to go off. And then when you go off, you notice a slight, maybe a week of a dip, and then you're back to
how long
normal.
do you take it?
About 45 to 60 days. You should.
Okay.
After that, you don't really get many effects from it. That's from my personal experience. But it legit works. It's a legit supplement.
How are you guys? I know in one of your recent podcasts, you talked about you're doing like 3 30-minute walks a day through this coronavirus deal. Are you guys doing anything? I know you talked about for running a fitness podcast, and that's kind of the way I felt. It's like I run this fitness podcast with Joel, and we have 30,000 guys in this group, and I was like, man, I'm not even in shape. Or I've always been decent, but I'm not like in the best shape of my life, how I should see myself as running a fitness podcast. And I remember on one of yours, you said the same thing. You were like, we are not in great shape right now.
No, we're compared to the average person, we're fit and all that.
You're probably still pretty good. Yeah.
Our priorities are maintaining good health, good mobility, decent strength, being able to run our business and be with our families and be good, good dads to our kids. So the priority right now isn't to be as shredded and jacked as possible. And then of course, with the current circumstances, it's like, if you don't schedule activity, you are going to be so sedentary, and then you're not going to the grocery store as often. Normally what I would do is I would shop every day and get fresh food every day, but because the circumstances, I go to the grocery store once a week, so we're eating more foods with longer shelf lives. So just overall, our fitness levels are not as good as they usually are, for sure.
What do you do for mobility? Because I heard on, I think it was that same podcast, you guys were talking about yoga. Someone doing yoga, which I personally do yoga, and I love it because I'm the most non-flexible person you ever meet in your life. So I feel like I have to do it to stay somewhat flexible. But God, I swear there was something to
Adam's got a training out right now, right, Sal?
I swear there was something where you guys had a free mobility class or something people can do online.
We do. It's still up there. It's at mindpumpwebinar.com. And what Adam does is he goes through 5 of his favorite mobility movements. And mobility done properly is you're working out. You're connecting to new ranges of motion. It's not just passive stretching. What you're trying to do is you're trying to gain new ranges of motion that you have strength and control over. So for mobility, what we tend to do those types of movements. So MAPS Prime Pro is one of our programs. And that's all the stuff that's in there. There's about 55 mobility movements with instruction in them that will help you gain connected mobility, not just ranges of motion, but connected mobility.
So that's a big difference opposed to yoga, is it's more about range of motion?
Yoga, if you do yoga properly, yoga is not about passive stretching. Now, there are forms of yoga that are a little bit more passive, like yin yoga.
Right.
But if you're doing your normal like vinyasa flow type class or whatever, you're not passively stretching, you're active. You're in a pose.
Yep.
And they're telling you to draw, they'll say lines of energy, right? So push lines of energy out and pull them in. And what they mean is, activate your muscles, bring in you're not allowing your legs to just rest on the sides of the mat and you're resting on your joints. You have to stay active. So that yoga done properly is great for mobility.
Sal, we could ask you questions all day because you're super intelligent. You went from big box gym to having your own studio to now having the top or one of the top fitness podcasts in the world.
The top.
We're definitely going to want to have you on again if it's okay with you. But one question we always mean to ask our guests,
we don't always follow through.
We always forget is, and we hate to put you on the spot, but what does it mean to you to be a dad who lifts? You just talked about prioritizing spending time with your family, and I won't put words in your mouth. What's it mean to you to be a dad who lifts?
Well, to be a dad who lifts, so in my opinion, a good father is one that raises children that are confident, self-sufficient, a father that shows their children strong empathy and love and consistency. The consistency, what gives them discipline. I want my kids to feel confident that their father loves them, supports them, and that that I'm going to be there for them. So I want to raise good people, good human beings. As far as the who lifts part, like I try to do with other parts of my life, I just lead by example. So I exercise and I lift weights and I bring the kids out there and I train them, and this way that they see and understand the value of being active and taking care of themselves in a very simple way, which is through fitness, but hopefully that bleeds over into other things.
That's awesome. That's perfect.
I love that, man. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. How can guys connect with you and get a hold of you, Sal?
Personally, you can find me on Instagram at Mindpump Sal. And then if you want to, just a bunch of free fitness information, obviously our podcast is free. Our YouTube channel, Mindpump TV, has got tons of exercises and instruction on there. It's totally free. And then we have a lot of guides that we write on different subjects that are free. You can find those at mindpumpfree.com.
Sal, thanks again for hopping on here, man. Seriously, priceless information. Love getting to pick your brain a little bit, and stay safe out there.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if you guys like this episode of the Dads Who Live podcast, found anything useful, entertaining, please give us a like and share. We do this stuff for free. If you are a dad who lifts, we have a Dad Who Lifts Facebook group with like 30,000 guys and growing. That's there to help you out for support as well. We are on IG, Dads Who Lift Official. We have a Facebook page as well, the Dads Who Lift Podcast. We're on all the formats that Chad will tell you. We got iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud. I think I got them all out of the park. So thanks, guys. We appreciate your support, and thanks for tuning in. And again, Sal, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
On next week's episode of the Dads Who Lift podcast, we talk about Joel and I's fitness challenge, schedule during the coronavirus, fuck Alan Roberts, anal chugs, and Joel also lies and says that he has been waking up at 5 o'clock every morning when he slept in the morning that we made this episode.